Today I'm going to show you guys how to start to diagnose your fuel system by doing a fuel pressure test 2 ways. Stay tuned. What is going on, guys? Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. As always, my day just keeps getting better and better. So I don't know if you guys saw the last video, but I replaced the alternator on the XJ. I will link that right up here in the corner. If you haven't watched that already, go ahead and watch that. And like I said, I went ahead and replaced the alternator. I was having battery issues, dying out, and we went ahead and got that taken care of. Replaced the alternator. Battery seems to stay charged just fine, but now, unfortunately, I'm running into a no idle or rough start condition. So basically, when I try and start the car, if I don't give it gas, it won't start on its own. It'll just crank and crank. But if I give it gas, it will eventually start up, and then it has a really rough idle. Sometimes it'll die out on its own, but if I give it some gas, it'll eventually kind of even out and idle on its own, but very poorly. So I've had issues in the past with the Jeep not starting. Say I park, go inside, come back out, and the Jeep won't start. It'll just crank until I give it gas. So initially I kind of thought my fuel pump was going out, but with everything else going on, it took a little bit of a back burner. So I wasn't really worried about it at the time. Went ahead and replaced the alternator, got everything there figured out, and as soon as I got that worked out, of course, the fuel pump decides to fully shut down. I don't know if it was because too much load on the components when the battery was, or when the alternator was bad, but unfortunately I'm thinking my fuel pump is bad. So today we're going to look at the fuel system. I'm going to do a fuel pressure test on the fuel rail. I'm going to do 2 tests, one with the car off, but the fuel system primed basically, or constantly with pressure in it with the car off, and then I'm going to let it sit for a bit and see if there's any leaks, or if there's any a bad valve in the fuel pump. That's not really my concern. My concern is there just not being enough fuel pressure in the first place. So we're also going to do a test where we run the vehicle and test the fuel pressure while it's running. So let's go ahead and get into it. I will walk you guys through. It's super easy, but the test with the car not running, you have to jump your fuel pump relay. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that first. We'll do it with the car off, and then we'll do it with the car on. So stick around, and I will show you guys, walk you guys through how to test your fuel pressure system both ways. Okay, everybody. So I have the fuel pressure gauge set up. It's super simple to set up on these Jeeps. You've got your fuel rail here, little Schrader valve right here, and your fuel pressure gauge should just screw right into that. Doesn't need to be super tight. I've got my return or relief valve running through the hose into an old bottle. Make sure that you run it into something or away from the vehicle so that when you start it back up, you don't accidentally cause a fire. So let's go over here. We've got our fuel pump relay. As you can see, it is this relay, top right. So I'll have to take this one out to do the test. We'll start with the vehicle off, fuel pump primed, and then we'll go from there. Alright, everybody, once you get your fuel pump relay out, you're going to want to jump this connector here to your bottom connector here. I've got the key in the on position, so once we jump these, we should hear the fuel pump turn on and stay constantly priming while we do our test. So let's listen. Not expecting to hear much because I don't think the fuel pump is working properly, but I heard a little bit. So let's go over here and check the gauge. And we're sitting at about 40, I'd say about 45, somewhere in that area. Let me see if we can focus here. There we go. So we're sitting about 45. If I remember correctly, the service manual calls for around 50 psi. So right now it seems normal. We're gonna go ahead and let this sit for a few minutes, and see if the pressure drops at all. I'll go ahead and disconnect the relay so that it's not constantly priming. We'll see if we lose pressure, and if we do, that tells us we have either a bad return valve in the fuel pump, or we can move on to the next problem. So let's go ahead and unplug the connector, and we'll watch this gauge for about 2 or 3 minutes. Well, it's been a couple of minutes, and it seems like we're at about 41 psi, which is a good sign. It means I don't have any leaks or a bad return valve. So at this point, pretty sure we can go ahead and move on to the engine running test. What I would be looking for here, just to quickly go over this, what I'm looking for here is a very quick, drastic drop in the pressure, which would indicate problems elsewhere. But it seems like we're able to maintain fuel pressure in the lines once everything's primed. So let's go ahead and move on to the engine running test. For that, I will come back over here and take my relay and just reinsert it. And then I'm going to go grab a helper, and I'm going to stand here, watch the gauge, have them try and crank it over, and we'll watch and see what the pressure does. Alright, we've got my little brother here. He's going to be the helper. I've got the fuel pump relay reinstalled. I went ahead and cleared the pressure on the gauge so that we're starting at 0 again. We can get a good accurate reading of exactly what it's doing. Alright, brother, if you want to get in and just go ahead and crank the car, just turn it over and see what it does. Now, since the car's been sitting for a while and I just primed the ignition, it might start by itself, but I'm kind of looking for the rough idle and to see what it does once it's idling. Okay, it primed, built pressure on prime. That's a good sign. Okay, with the vehicle running, we're just going to watch it for a little bit. I'm going to release the pressure one more time. Watching that hose, it looks like we have good flow. So that's a good sign. Now I'm just watching the gauge to see if the pressure drops at all. And of course, now that we're doing this test, it doesn't want to act up. So we'll watch it for a minute and see if it does anything. Well, like I said, unfortunately, for whatever reason, it wants to act normal while we're doing the test. But that's basically how you do it, guys. That's how you perform the pressure test. Now, if the fuel pump was just incredibly bad, completely shot, you would either, on the gauge, you would either not hold a steady pressure. It would fluctuate highly, go way down, then way up, then way down, then way up. Or it would just stay either at 0 or at a very low pressure, but it seems like from running it for a little bit, it stayed within spec, which like I said earlier, is I think around 49 or 50 psi. But I'm gonna drive this thing around the block, see if it wants to act up again. But that's the basis of how you do your fuel pressure tests, both with the vehicle off and with the vehicle running. If you guys want to know any other ways to diagnose your fuel pressure system, or if you have any questions, please leave it down in the comments down below. If you haven't seen any of the other videos on this XJ build, please go watch them. I'll link the playlist up there. I've got a lot of cool videos on doing the lift and everything. Hopefully there will be more to come for it soon. I apologize for not posting in a while. Unfortunately, life has taken over and YouTube has taken kind of a back burner for a bit. But hopefully we can get back into it soon. Really appreciate you guys watching. Let me know if this helped you guys. This is how to do it on an XJ, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. Just a quick edit on the end here. Went around the block, just literally around this block here, and it died out on me twice, and I had to do the same thing again. So got back, ran the pressure test again, and the gauge didn't do anything weird when the car started to want to die out again. So I'm I'm thinking maybe my initial diagnosis of the bad fuel pump might be incorrect. So I've got a few other things to look into, but like I said, that's why it's important that you guys do these fuel pressure tests, just to confirm or deny whatever your problems might be. Proper diagnosis is always important before throwing random parts at it and spending more money than you need to. Hopefully this helped.